Yo, yo. Welcome back to Son of a Preacher Man. As always, I'm your host, the Soapman. Yo, a couple announcements before we get started. We got a lot to jump off into, so we just gonna dig right off into it. But 3 announcements before we get started. First of all, I would like to apologize for the abrupt ending of the last episode. Now, you might be saying to yourself, yo, that was whack, that was bogus, man. How it's just gonna cut off right when it was getting so good? But in my defense, the video cut off at 1 hour, 1 minute, precisely the time it was meant to, so Soapman ain't gotta hear his mama's mouth. 1 hour episodes, it cut off at precisely 1 hour, 1 minute. Call it a miracle, okay? Second announcement, we are no longer in Indianapolis. We are now broadcasting to you from Crown Point, Indiana. Ain't nothing but corn in Indiana, folks. Last but not least, let me just set the scene or the premise for this episode. In my last episode, we was talking about Goliath, and I was debating his height. Okay, so remember, it's only 3 sources that we get the story of Goliath from. The most recent is the Masoretic text. The Masoretic text is what your King James version. Am I still saying that wrong? The Masoretic text is what your King James version was transcribed from. Okay, so if you got the King James version of the Bible, it comes from the Masoretic text. And in that text, it attributes Goliath's height to being 9 feet 6 inches. Now, older than the Masoretic text is the Greek Septuagint, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The Greek Septuagint is hundreds of years older than the Masoretic text, and in that text, it attributes Goliath's height to being 6 foot 6 inches tall. Masoretic text, he's 6 cubits and a span, which equates to 9 feet 6 inches. Greek Septuagint says he's 4 cubits in a span, which equates to 6 feet 6 inches. Now, even older than the Greek Septuagint is the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they agree with the Greek Septuagint of Goliath's height being 6 feet 6 inches, 4 cubits and a span. Now, my argument is that all 3 texts agree. The length of a cubit, which is from the fingertip to the elbow, varied over time, and we talking about a large span of time. I believe by the time the Masoretic text people wrote Goliath's height, the cubit had shortened, so they had to add 2 extra cubits, giving his height 6 cubits and a span, but they all talking about the same height. Let's go back to the original text of the Hebrew Bible where it's talking about Goliath, because it goes into a very detailed description of what I believe is a giant. Okay, 1 Samuel chapter 17 verses 1 through 9 reads, "Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Sholach and Azekah and at Ephes Damim." I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Who cares? "And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side. And there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath." It's also pronounced Goliath, "whose height was 6 cubits and a span," as I just alluded to. I didn't allude to it, I flat out said it. "And he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass." Now, I'm going to just tell you right now, 5,000 shekels of brass equates to approximately 125 pounds, and we'll touch on that in a second. And he had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. Folks, what a target of brass is, it's a neck piece. And from my research, it's said to have weighed up to 30 pounds. But it's just a piece of metal that covers your throat to protect you from slashing and getting spear gouged, okay? It says, and there was a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam. And his spearhead weighed 600 shekels of iron. And one bearing a shield went before him. Now, before we go any further, it says that his spearhead weighed 600 shekels of iron. That equates to 15 pounds. And we're going to touch on that in a second. And one bearing a shield went before him. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am I not a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me and kill me. Then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be servants and serve us. Okay. So, in my last episode, where we left off is I was debating Goliath's height, because I'm in the crowd that think he was 9 feet 6 inches tall. The Bible gives a very detailed description of this man, and I believe it's describing a giant. And I'm going to go through point by point. I'm going to play devil's advocate against myself and argue in favor of the people who believe he was 6'6", and you're going to see it just don't add up. The Bible is clearly describing to you a giant. Now, before we go any further, more research will show you that Goliath is not only purported to be a giant, but he comes from a well-known, established family of giants. Goliath had brothers. They also were giants. They were descendants from a renowned giant named Arba. Arba was a descendant of, I believe he was a descendant of, Goliath was an Anakim giant. So all Anakim giants are descendants of a well-known and renowned giant named Anak. So Goliath's lineage also suggests that he is a giant. His mother, not his mother, but Goliath's mother is descendant from David's sister-in-law. So let me see if I can get this right. David's great-grandmother, her name is Ruth. We're not going to get into that story. We're going to skip over that story. But David's great-grandmother, her name is Ruth. And she has a sister-in-law. And this sister-in-law's great-granddaughter is Goliath's mother, and her name is Orpah. At least that's what the legends say. Okay, not to get off track, back on Goliath. He clearly stands out among the Philistines. They give a detailed description of this man. He must be special. But what's special about him? I believe he is a 9'6" Anakim giant. Anakim giants are the worst of the giant tribes. They are the most ferocious. They are the most warlike. They are the most dangerous. Now, giants are a thing of the past. At this point in time in history, what you would call Goliath is a puny remnant of what once was. But even for right now, he's the biggest thing walking around town by far right now. His reputation precedes him. He is a veteran in the Philistine army, okay? So like I said, the Bible goes into deep, detailed description. It says that he has a helmet of bronze, bronze-scaled coat of mail. Some legends say that coat of mail was intermingled with scales of iron. It gives you the weight of the coat of mail. It says that it weighs 5,000 shekels. That would equate to 100. I've seen studies that say it was up to 200 pounds. I've seen some studies that says it was as low as like 85, 75 pounds. Okay, but what the general consensus is that it weighed 125 pounds. That's what most people agree on. I did studies on this helmet. Okay, the NFL football helmet weighs what, like up to six pounds, I think it was. So imagine a football helmet that's 3 times as big. So 6 times, you want to get the largest football helmet, that'll be about 6 pounds. Now multiply that times 3, because Goliath is 3 times the size of a normal man. That gives you 18 pounds. Now make it out of brass. We talking about his helmet alone probably weighed 30 pounds. His coat of mail, 125 pounds at least. Greaves on his legs, we talking about 10 to 15 pounds. Including his sword and spear, this man is a literal walking tank. He's probably carrying 200 pounds of armor and gear on his back. Now, compared to the size of a normal man, this is what a 9'6" man would look like. And by all accounts, this is what the Bible is describing. It's describing a giant monstrosity of a man in Goliath. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we about to jump off into the truth behind the story of David and Goliath. Son of a Preacher Man proudly presents to you the first book of Samuel, part 6, The Shepherd, part 2. Okay, now let me explain to y'all that don't know what a paradigm is, okay? I'm gonna give you the dictionary definition of the word paradigm. It is a typical example or pattern of something. Now let me explain to you in plain English, layman terms, what that means, okay? What that means is a rule of thought in any field of study, okay? Let me explain even further, okay? Let me elaborate. In my line of work, we got a saying, CYA, cover your own ass. It ain't in the, not own, I added a word. Cover your ass, okay? So in my line of work, that's not in the rule book, but it's a rule that everybody know to follow. No matter what profession you in, you might have written laws or unwritten laws that everybody know to follow. Like, you know what I mean? Say, like when I used to be in martial arts, we would throw a back fist, but what it was a fake. So everybody in martial arts knew something was coming after that back fist. That's what a paradigm is. It's something that's generally known and followed in a given profession or field of study. Okay, so what I'm getting to is, we talking about armed combat. Single-armed, one-on-one combat. And I'm arguing that Goliath was 9 feet 6 inches tall. Now, the first point I want to argue is his armor. And the paradigm in military conflict has been uniform for ages, for thousands and thousands of years. And what that is 30 pounds. Now, what do I mean by that? You do not want a soldier going into battle weighing much more than 25 to 30 pounds. And I'm going to explain why. One single word: balance. Let me explain to you what I mean. Sorry about that. I'm outside. In single arm combat, if your soldier's armor is too heavy, it's gonna make him slow. It's gonna wear him down. He's not gonna be able to fight long, and he's not going to be able to fight effectively. If he has too little armor on, it's not going to provide him enough protection to fight safely. So what you want to do is have a happy medium. What you're looking for is enough armor to cover your body and protect you, but at the same time, not so much to where it becomes cumbersome, gaudy, and it inhibits you from fighting well. It becomes a burden. It's a scale. It's a balance. You want to give up a little bit of protection for flexibility and maneuverability, okay? It's a balance. when you think about stuff like this, it's a lot of examples that I can present to you, but the best one I can present to you is this: a German Shepherd. Yeah, think about a German Shepherd. Yeah, he ain't the strongest, but he's strong enough. And he ain't the fastest, but he'll hawk you down and maul you. He ain't the smartest, but he's pretty damn smart. The point that I'm trying to make is the German Shepherd is not the best at anything, but he's pretty damn good at everything. So think German Shepherd when you think balance, okay? Perfect dog. He does everything well, but he's not the best in any of them. But you don't need him to be the best. He's so well-rounded and versatile. That's why police use German Shepherds as their dog of choice. Okay, now, go on, look at this slide that I'm showing you. It's a slide of the Roman Legion Army, one of the most successful armies in history. Look at them and tell me what you notice about them. Okay, time's up. What you notice is that they're all dressed the same. Why? Because there is a uniform, agreed upon belief and ideology, whatever you want to describe it as. It is agreed upon the amount of armor that a soldier should wear into battle to where it gives him the most optimum odds of success. And that number in weight is 30 pounds. Look at these Roman soldiers. Look at their armor. How much do you think that armor weighs just by looking at it? Now, let me remind you, that is not iron that is on these soldiers. This is probably bronze, which is copper mixed with tin. That's 30 pounds worth of armor. Look at the individual Roman soldier. Look at him. Just take a good look at him. Minus the sword, minus the shield. We're just talking about Goliath's mail, his coat of mail. The Bible says it weighs 5,000 shekels. That's agreed upon to be 125 pounds. Now, if the average Roman soldier only stepped into battle with 30 pounds of armor, extrapolate that. Do you believe a 6'6" man is going into single-armed combat with 3-4 times? That's 4 times the weight of a normal man's armor. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter where you go in history. These are pictures of Greek soldiers in ancient times, thousands of years ago. Look at their armor. How much do you think it weighs? You see their torso is basically covered and their arms, leaving their arms and legs pretty much bare so that they are flexible. The armor protects the most vital parts, the most vital organs, which are held in the torso. But it doesn't matter what period in time you go to. It doesn't matter what culture. It doesn't matter what army. 30 pounds is the standard. 30 pounds is the standard for a mail coat, a coat of mail. This is a slide of the great battle between the heroes of Homer's Iliad. This is Hector and Achilles. It is an absolute epic battle that has stood the test of time. Almost everybody has heard of this battle, but what I want you to focus on is look at their armor. Just standard, no matter what time period, no matter what soldier, no matter what army the soldier fights for. Look, their torso, their shoulders, breasts, and torso is covered, leaving their arms and legs free. It is a basic known standard. 30 pounds of armor for a soldier is the paradigm. Now, make no mistakes, folks. Don't get goofy. When you got an army, you got several different ranks, and you got several different divisions within the army. You got regular soldiers like you see right here on this slide. These Roman soldiers would just be considered infantry. But you also have light infantry, which would have, a little bit less armor on. You also have heavy infantry, which would have an extraordinary amount of heavy armor on. But I'm saying for the standard infantry soldier, 30 pounds is the standard. 30 pounds is the paradigm. I'm sorry, I'm going through all my slides here. I'm getting a little lost on my play is going haywire. Okay, so think German Shepherd, think balance. Normal soldier is going into battle with 30 pounds of armor on, and you got Goliath stepping into battle with 125 pounds of armor. Once again, this is another picture of Hector and Achilles from the Homer's Iliad. No matter how you slice it, arms and legs are bare. They both have, if you see my arrow, they both have greaves on, because let me go back a little bit. Greaves are important. You know what I mean? You want to protect the most vital. You want to protect the, man, what is going on with this dude? You want to protect, here, you want to protect the most vital parts of your body. And you know what I mean? Soldiers often slash at, oh my God, what is this madness that's going on with, oh, that is so irritating. I'm not going on until I get it right. Okay, you want to protect the most vital parts of your body, and often soldiers will take a stab at like your shins, you know what I mean? And so the shins are the furthest part, are furthest away from your torso. They're probably the hardest things to defend. So you gonna cover up your shin. You gonna cover up the most vital and vulnerable parts of your body. Sorry, I know that was a lot to go through just to make that little small point, as though you didn't know that already. Bear with me. Anywho, as I was saying before, nothing is just clear-cut black and white. It's always a lot of gray area between that black and white. This is a slide of the Celts. And as you see, they dressed pretty heavily. That's probably more than 30 pounds worth of armor. But a lot of the Celts also went into battle bareback in their pajamas and barefoot. So, you know, these are outliers. The standard, the paradigm. You can research it, fact check me, let me know what you think in the comments. It is 30 pounds, it always have been. Now look at the African warrior here on this slide. Do you think he's wearing 30 pounds of armor? No, he's not. He's probably wearing 10 or 15 pounds at the most. And some of you are probably saying to yourself, oh, it was because the Africans were underdeveloped. No, genius. It's hot in Africa, and so they dress lightly. You know what I mean? More decoration than, you know what I mean, covering. So, once again, this African warrior would be an outlier. In general, most armies, you know what I mean? Well, I shouldn't even say in general. Depending on, you know, what the climate is, it's going to have a big impact on how people dress. But like in Europe, in, you know, antiquity, and in like, you know, the Middle East and antiquity, the general consensus, the general standard, the paradigm was 30 pounds of armor. This African is an outlier. So, we're talking about single-armed, one-on-one combat. Look at these two soldiers. As you see, they have their shins covered for the most part. This furthest part is furthest away from the body, hard to protect. They have a shield. This gladiator here has his shield and shoulder guard on the same side. This guy has his shoulder guard on the opposite side of his shield. But look, he's got his sword arm covered up. That's to protect from nicks and scratches. You'll often see these warriors or gladiators have wristbands on, or what's called gauntlets, to protect their hands, wrists, and forearms. But once again, even though these two guys are outliers, look how much armor they are wearing into battle. That's because when you are going into single-armed combat, you want to give yourself the greatest chance for victory, because usually it's victory or death. The loser is getting buried that day. So you want to allow yourself flexibility. You don't want to be too slow. You want to be protected enough to where it does not burden you, does not inhibit your flexibility and speed to where it is not cumbersome and gaudy. I hope y'all getting this because I'm driving it home like I'm giving myself a headache. Moving on. Think German Shepherd. When you think balance, think German Shepherd. It does not matter what time period. Take modern days, for example. Look at this modern day U.S. soldier. Look at him. How much armor do you think he's wearing? How much do you think that vest that he's wearing weighs? About 30 pounds. Now look at this guy to the left of him. Okay, he has all type of supplies. He's probably carrying about 40 pounds of gear. But the standard remains, the paradigm remains 30 pounds for infantry combat soldiers. Look at this guy. How much gear do you, minus his gun, not his helmet, not his Fruit of the Looms and pants, just what's covering his torso. How much do you think it weighs? 30 pounds. Top notch. Look, the U.S. military is the top notch on the planet. And the standard, it hasn't changed. The 30-pound rule has not changed. It doesn't matter how many slides I show. It doesn't matter what part of the world you go to. Go to Russia, you'll see the same thing. Go to Turkey, you'll see the same thing. 30 pounds of armor. Think German Shepherd when you think balance. And balance is how you want to send your champion, your hero, into single-armed combat. Now, mind you, it's going to be some ex-military veterans or somebody whose uncle was in the military saying, "Oh, that's hogwash. They carry plenty of gear. I've known soldiers to carry hundreds of pounds into combat." Yes, Sherlock, but here's the difference. That dude is still shooting at you from behind a tree or behind a tank. He in no way, shape, or form is coming up to somebody swinging a sword or swinging a spear in single-armed combat. It is a false equivalency to take this picture of this dude I got on this slide and compare him to somebody going into single-armed one-on-one combat with a sword or a spear. Please don't insult my intelligence. You must be joking. Anywho, moving on. Next, I want to address Goliath's spear. The Bible says that the iron spearhead weighed 600 shekels, which equates to 15 pounds. Folks, the normal size of a spearhead is about 3 pounds. Okay? But let's say you want to make a spearhead on the big end, I don't know, for a larger type of guy. Okay? Maybe 5 pounds. But let's say the guy was 6'6". So maybe you would double the size of the spearhead. Maybe it would be 7 to 10 pounds. But Goliath's spearhead, the Bible says, was 600 shekels of iron. 15 pounds. That is more than 4 times the size of a normal spear. Look at this slide of this dude on here. We don't know how big he is. He might be 6 feet tall for all we know. But look at the size of the spear that he's holding. That's a replica now, mind you. They didn't go dig up Goliath's spear. But the Bible says the handle on the spear was like a weaver's beam. That was something that they used to sew. It was incredibly large. What the Bible is describing for you, you know, we can debate Goliath's height till the cows come home. But once we start investigating the size and weight of his armament and artillery, what we realize is that this is a monstrosity of a man. This is a behemoth. This is a freak of nature. He is what the Bible is. I'm not going on till I get this word. He is what the Bible is alluding him to be. By all evidence and inclination, they are describing a monster. A monster. Look at how this replica of Goliath's spear, look at it in the hands of a regular sized guy, 5'8", 5'9". I don't know how tall this guy is. This is not a weapon for a man 6 feet 6 inches tall by any stretch. A man 6 feet 6 inches tall could still not wield this effectively. You are not going to send your champion into battle with an oversized, gaudy weapon that he can't even use. And by no stretch of the imagination could a 6'6" individual wield this object. Just look at it. I really shouldn't even have to say anything. A 6'6" individual could not throw this spear. It would be more of a burden to him than it would be a help. It would be a hindrance to him. Use your God-given common sense. Look at this slide. How big do you think you would have to be to effectively wield this gigantic spear like a normal man would wield a normal spear? You'd have to be between 8 and 10 feet tall. And that is what the Bible, at least the Masoretic text, purports Goliath to be. So we got this, by all accounts, behemoth of a man, this Anakim giant, coming out with his shield bearer for 40 days and 40 nights, challenging the Israelite army to send out a man to fight him. And we discussing it, is he a giant or not? This certainly is not a normal man that is coming out so boldly. 40 days and 40 nights, that's over a month. He comes down and challenges and defies the army of Saul. So 1 Samuel chapter 17 verses 10 through 19 reads, "And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of the Ephrathite of Bethlehemite." Oh God, I just slaughtered that. It says, "Now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to battle. And the names of his 3 sons that went to battle were Eliab, the firstborn, and next to him Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest, so David was number 8. And the 3 eldest followed Saul." The Bible's reiterating. "But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistines drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. So Goliath had been coming down, challenging the army of Saul, the Israelite army, for 40 days and 40 nights. Well, I shouldn't say 40 nights, I'm adding to it. For 40 days, over a month. And during this time, during this 40-day period, this is what's going on with David. I'm painting a picture for you, okay? It says, And the Philistine drew near morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. Now while this is going on, it says, And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren, and carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000, and look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. 1 Samuel chapter 17 verses 20 through 27 reads, And David rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with the keeper, and took and went, as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench, as the host was going forth to fight, and shouted for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion and Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, or Goliath, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words, and David heard them. So what they telling you real quick is this is the 40th day. The Bible says that Goliath comes down and challenges the armies of Israel for 40 days. And on the 40th day, David arrives, okay? It says, and all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, have you seen this man that has come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and will make his father's house free in Israel. And David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, what shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, so shall it be done to the man that killeth him. Now, for context, I've put up a map here for you. This is where we are. We're in the land of Israel. Here's a bigger map for you, you know, Middle East. We're going to zoom in. This is the Valley of Eli, okay, for your viewing pleasure. So you know exactly where we're talking about. The Valley of Eli is a real place. This ain't Fantasy Island. This ain't Never Land. Here's a slide, even though this is a bad slide. As you see, there's a mountain on the left. There is a mountain on the right, and a big, great expanse in the middle. That is the Valley of Eli. So you had the armies of Israel on one mountain, you had the armies of the Philistine on another mountain, and you had the Valley of Eli where David and Goliath are going to fight in the middle. And this is a nice map right here that shows, if you see my pointer, it shows the Philistine camp was on this mountain over here. The Israelite camp is on this mountain over here. You got the Valley of Eli in between. It is the perfect stage for a single one-on-one combat. You got Gath is over this way, so Azekah over this way. Anyway, here's another map for you, for those of you that are interested. Excuse me, folks. Pollen and dander is stifling. Anyways, this is a nice map because it shows how close Bethlehem, Judah is to the actual battle site. David did not have to travel far. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 miles, something like that. And you know, that's slow moving. But I think the Bible said he got up and he left early that morning. Let me see, I want to make sure. And David rose up early in the morning, so he probably got up before the sun came up, headed out, got there by evening. But I don't know, I wasn't there. Let's not speculate. So we got this, by all accounts, giant named Goliath. And he seems to stand out among the Philistines. He seems not to be your average Joe. This is no regular guy. He's wearing 4 times the amount of armor. His spearhead is 4 times the weight of a normal spearhead. The people who want to argue that this man is 6'6", it just doesn't add up. It just doesn't hold water. And that's what I'm trying to show you. You can, if you want to nitpick and hone in on just his height, whether it was 4 cubits or 6 cubits, then that's fine. But if you look at all the surrounding evidence, it screams that this man was incredibly abnormally large, okay? And here's the thing. It says that the Israelite army was sore afraid of him. It says that when David shows up, this guy comes out on the 40th day he's been coming out. He threatens the Israelite army like he's been doing all 39 days before. And it says the men of the Israelite army are sore afraid. They said, have you seen this man? This is not describing a 6'6" dude. Ain't nobody scared of nobody 6'6", especially if the king is offering riches and his daughter. Here's the thing I want to point out, and I'm not going to go deep off into it. Me and my brother used to argue about this all the time. If you notice and read carefully, David is not interested in fighting Goliath until he hears that there is a prize at the end of it. It says, and the men of Israel said, have ye seen this man that has come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him. That means money, with great riches, and will give him his daughter and make his father's house free in Israel. That means he don't gotta pay no taxes. He's gonna make David rich. He's gonna marry David into the family, which will put David closer to the throne. And David says, it says, and David spake to the man that stood by him, saying, what shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine, and taketh away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Oh, he gets to talking real graphic and cheesy once he finds out that there's a reward at the end of it. David shows up. He is talking with his brothers. He's laughing and joking. He's cheering on the Israelite army. He is a patriot. And Goliath comes up. He sees everybody in the Israelite army is shook, and maybe he doesn't like it. But he becomes awfully interested in the cash and prize rewards that come along with defeating this behemoth. 1 Samuel chapter 17 verses 28 through 36 reads, and Eliab his eldest brother heard when he spake unto the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, why camest thou down hither? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. And David said, what have I done? And David said, what have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another, and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with the Philistine. And Saul said to David, thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. And David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep. And there came a lion and a bear, and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him, and smote him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and smote him, and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear. And this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he hath defied the armies of the living God. Boy, David is talking big smoke. Let's just do a quick recap. David, once he hears about the reward for killing Goliath, seems awfully motivated and enthusiastic. He's interested. His older brother, his eldest brother Eliab, knows David like the back of his hand. He pulls David to the side. He tugs his coattail. And I could see my older brother Terry doing this. Anytime the Bible talk about brothers, it resonates with me. I got two older brothers. Well, my older brother died. Rest in peace, Herm. Anytime it got to do with brothers, it resonates with me. Even with the story of Cain and Abel, I ain't saying I agree or condone it, but I understand. It was times I wanted to strangle my brother. So David's older brother Eliab, he knows David like the back of his hand. He pulls him to the side. He's like, what is you doing? And who watching daddy's sheep? You need to take your ass home. I know what you up to. He says, I know of the naughtiness of thine heart. In other Bibles, it says the cleverness of thine heart. And he also says, I know thy pride. That says a lot to me. He says, you're down here to stir up trouble. You didn't came down here to watch the fight. So David says, cleverly, the Bible says, David turns from his brother and starts speaking to the men that are around him. He's like, okay, I can't get no leeway with you. I ain't making no headway with you. Let me talk to some folks that's gonna listen. It's very clever what David does, how he plays it. He doesn't disrespect his brother, but he transitions. He says, and is there not a cause? He's saying, is there not truth to what I'm saying? Am I lying? And the men around his brother, his brother Eliab can't stop the fervor that David has just created. He can't stop this whisper. What's that song? What started off as a whisper slowly turned into a scream. Okay, this ember that David sparks is now turning into a roaring blaze. He's motivating the troops behind him. They like, yeah, I feel hell yeah. They got his back. And really, you know what I'm saying? He uses a very clever political tactic against his brother Eliab. So all David's bravado reaches the ear of King Saul. And so David wins an audience with the king. And he tells the king, let me go fight him. King Saul says, kid, I admire your bravery. He says, but you are just a youth. And this dude been putting in work since he was a youth. He's a veteran at this game. You don't stand a chance. Then something very incredible happens. But first, before I talk about that, I want to just make a note. Saul doesn't recognize David. If you've been paying attention the last couple episodes, or at least in my last episode, we talked about how David became Saul's harp player. But at this point, and I'm going to prove this later in the next episode, I'm going to prove this, or in the next couple episodes. Saul, at this point, he does not recognize his harp player. He does not recognize David as the harp player who plays the harp to calm him down when he's having one of his episodes. He doesn't recognize him. I'm going to prove that later, okay? But not to get off track. Something very incredible happens. David must fight to go fight. He must first fight on his side and convince the king to let him go fight. He got to fight before he go fight. You ever had a job where you had to drive 30 minutes to get to work? I'll be damned, you had to work before you got to work. That's what I'm saying. David had to fight before he even fought. He had to fight just to fight. And look at how he does it, okay? David tells King Saul the story of a lion and a bear. Okay? David says, let me tell you something. While you over here underestimating me, while you overlooking me, he says, let me put you on game. He said, I am but a shepherd. He said, but one time, a lion came and stole one of my daddy's sheep. He says, and I went and I whooped that lion. And not only did I defeat and kill the lion, I saved the sheep. Now, if y'all remember a few episodes back, we talk about Samson and how Samson killed a lion by ripping him in half. And that's what Samson was known for, his brute strength. His incredible brute strength. And so that makes sense. Samson's incredibly strong. He overpowers the lion. But what David shows you is a different type of strength. He also kills a lion and saves the sheep. And he doesn't do it with strength of arm. He does it with strength of mind. And that's not to say he's a weakling, but David is not incredibly strong. That is not one of his talents. He has the strength of a normal man, whereas Samson had the strength of a Superman. But David is clever. He is wise. You know this because that's the only way you're going to defeat a lion. And the only thing you have in your hand is a staff. And he says, you know that it's a up close and personal battle, because he says, I grabbed the lion by the beard. Did I get that right? Let me see. Oh, maybe we haven't got to that part yet. Or did we? I'm sorry. This obviously wasn't rehearsed. So David tells the story of the lion and the bear. I don't know if I put the slide up here, but he defeats the lion and the bear both with a staff. And he tells about how when he defeated the lion that he had to grab him by the beard. And he does the same thing to a bear. Now, there could be an argument that a bear is even more dangerous than a lion. I mean, it certainly weighs much more than a lion. I think bears can get up to almost 1,000 pounds, where lions weigh, somewhere about 500 to 600 pounds. Okay, here it is. It says, and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine, he says, I'm going to do the same thing to this uncircumcised Philistine as I did to the lion and the bear. He'll be as one of them. Boy, David is boy, as my mother would say, sound like jive to me. He is talking big SH. Anywho. And he does the same thing to a bear, which is arguably significantly more difficult to do than a lion. And he slays them both. And not only does he slay them, this is a big part of the story. He saves the lamb. He saves the lamb. Now, why am I emphasizing that? Because, folks, he would have been good just by killing the lion or the bear, because you ain't got to worry about him coming back. But he saves the lamb. This shows a specific amount of skill, awareness, and wisdom that he saved the lamb from the mouth of both, not one, but both the lion and the bear. I hope you get what I'm trying to emphasize. This shows the character of this man. He's not just good, he's great. 1 Samuel chapter 17 verses 37 through 40 reads, David said, moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul armed David with his armor, and he put an helmet of brass upon his head. Also he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, meaning Saul's sword. And he essayed to go, which means he paused, he hesitated, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off, and he took his staff in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones of the brook, and put them in a shepherd's bag which he had, even a scrip. And his sling was in his hand. I hope you noticing the stuff that I got in big, bold, red print. And his sling was in his hand. We're going to come back to that big, bold, red phrase right there. He said, and it says, and he drew near to the Philistine. So, folks, we coming up on the end of this episode. Bear with me 5 more minutes. David cleverly and successfully convinces King Saul to let him go and fight with the Philistine giant and champion Goliath, folks. Saul says, I ain't going out there. The least I can do for you is here, take my armor. Take my... What all did he give him? I'm sorry. He says, and Saul armed David with his armor, and he put a helmet of brass upon his head, and also gave him his coat of mail, and girded him with his sword. Saul says, at least if you go out there, Go out there with the best money can buy. Here, take the king's sword and the king's armor. And put a brass helmet on your head to protect your noggin. But David, once again, impressively, wisely, refuses the armor. And why? It's because I don't think it fit. I don't think it fit. The Bible says that Saul, from the shoulders up, was higher than any man in all of Israel. David was the least in his family. That doesn't mean he was a pipsqueak, but all his brothers were taller and bigger than him. He was the run of the litter. And none of his brothers are as big as Saul. Because from the shoulders up, no one's as big as Saul. It doesn't say it didn't fit, but I don't think it fit. And as far as the sword, it says, the sword and armor, it says David hadn't proved them. What it means is, this isn't him. He's not a soldier. He's not in the army. He's never really seen battle. You know, he may have been in some skirmishes or fights at home, but David is not a soldier other than what his brothers may have shown him. He doesn't really know how to use a sword, or at least I don't think he does. He says, I haven't proved myself worthy of these items to go into battle. He says, I can't do this. I can't go out there like this. He says, it ain't me. But Soapman, I personally think it didn't fit. So David says, nah, I'm a shepherd. I'm going to fight as a shepherd. So it says he takes his staff and he chooses 5 smooth stones from a brook and he puts them in his shepherd's bag. And his sling was in his hand. We coming back to that because that's going to be important. Ladies and gentlemen, it says he moved near to the Philistine and they face off. What you have right here is called a face-off. And we're going to end it right there. But when we come back, we're going to pick up right here at this face-off between the Philistine giant and hero and champion Goliath and the Israelite David. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the point of the production where I thank you for joining me for this episode of Son of a Preacher Man. As always, if you got any likes, dislikes, if you got any advice, compliments, insults, flirts, please leave them in the comment section. If you're new to this channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Yo, I'll see you next time. Same soap time, same soap channel, and we out.